Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about caregiving, and you'll find this really helpful if you're caregiving an elderly loved one, if you're caregiving a disabled loved one, or if you have a friend that's doing that as well and you want to know how to support them. My name is Deb, and welcome to Women Reinventing Midlife TV, where we aim to inspire women over 50 to thrive in a meaningful life that you deeply desire and deserve. Now, today I'm sharing an interview from a past online summit with the amazing Cynthia Pethuis, who is the owner of Senior Care Authority of New York and Southwest Florida. Now, during this insightful conversation, Cynthia shares her own transitional story while caring for elderly parents. And we also discuss so many important facets of caregiving, including what caregiving actually is. And we might be caregiving without actually realizing it. We include the importance of personal boundaries, self care, getting support, Alzheimer's disease, and the fact that it's sometimes not always elderly parents we're caring for, but often an older partner too. Cynthia's company has helped close to 10,000 families with their care needs through placement services, elder care consulting, and advocacy. She also serves on the board of NAMI and is active in community organizations such as the Alzheimer's Association. She gives some brilliant insights and tips. This is a fabulous conversation. So let's go over and take a look. Cynthia splits her time between New York and Southwest Florida and supports families across the US. Cynthia, welcome. I'm really excited that you've been able to join us. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I always appreciate you thinking that I'm somewhere in midlife when I'm a little bit beyond it. So it's lovely to be here.
I love it. Me too. I'm beyond it now too.
We'll just keep thinking about it though. We'll keep saying we're in midlife, but that's good.
That's right. That's right. I'm really glad you've been able to join us, Cynthia. I know that we've connected a couple of times all the way across the ocean, haven't we? Because I'm in Australia.
Mhm.
And I always love the insights that you share with our audience because, there are so many women in this stage of life caring for senior
Mhm.
parents. So many, so many. And I know that we're going to be talking about that topic today. And I know that there's going to be a lot of women in the audience that are really keen to hear your insights. I'd love it if you begin by sharing a little bit about your transitional story and how you came to be doing this really important work.
Sure. Before I go there, I want to tell you this. While we talk about caring for parents and that we're in this world of the daughters mainly caring for parents, what I also see is I see a lot of people caring for their older husband. So we live in a
Mm.
world where there are maybe multiple marriages and different types of marriages that come along, different types of partnering that come along. And I see a lot of my clients are women who are caring for their husbands who may be 10, 20, 30 years older than they are. So let's keep that in mind when we're talking as well. But let me talk about my background. I come from a variety of different jobs. My last real big career was a career with on Wall Street in New York City, and I left that career when my parents began to fail. And I realized they were about 2,500 miles away from me, and I was trying to take care of them long distance while I had children, and I had a marriage, and I had a career, and I had all these other things that I was having to do, and I was trying to help my parents. My sister was very helpful for me as well, but she lived about 3 hours from my parents. So we were both long distance caregivers. And when that whole process came to an end, when both my parents had died, I realized my girlfriends were calling me and saying, "What did you do for your mother? What
Mm.
did you do for your father?" And I realized that there was a business, and I'm a businesswoman, and I left and came to find this company that I became involved with. and began to help people. And it's been the most fulfilling career. I've had a lot of careers. I have a very short attention span, but it's been the most fulfilling thing that I've ever done because I can help so many people. And we help them with finding a place to live if they're not safe at home. We find a way to keep them at home if that's what works for them. We find a way to get the keys away from them so they're not driving. We find a way to support the caregivers. And because of that, it's just a soup to nuts type of a situation for us, very high touch, very concierge, and we fill our hearts with joy doing it, as well as making a living. I'm a businesswoman, and so I'm
Yeah.
glad I can help people, but I'm also glad that there's a revenue model that can allow me to help people.
This is the thing, isn't it? This is the important thing. It's like it's wonderful to do this work, but in order to be able to do this work, we need to be supported.
Correct.
And yeah, and that's why it's really important for actually even women in the audience listening to this interview now to realize that, even if we're in a place of service, that it is important that we are supported so it becomes sustainable. Yeah,
Correct, correct, because I wouldn't
yeah,
be any good if I didn't have a way to feed myself and my family. I wouldn't
that's
be able to
right.
help people if I couldn't feed them. So it takes both
Yeah.
sides of that.
Yeah, I love that.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm,
Yeah. Thank you for highlighting that. I think that's
mhm,
really
mhm.
important. Um, I I noticed what you said. You were caring for your parents when you were living, what was it, a 2 hour flight away from them, did you say?
Yeah,
Yeah. two
yeah,
hour flight
2,000
away from
miles.
them.
So it was a
Yeah,
yeah, it was a
2,000 miles.
yeah, yeah.
A long way. And so, I'd I'd love you to share with our audience what being a carer actually means, like what that looks like, because I know a lot of people are under the misconception that being a carer is moving in with someone and looking after them that way.
Mhm. So,
Mm,
it's really interesting that you say that because people think of it that way. But what you need to know, I know in the United States it's this way, and it's probably the same way in other countries as well. Unpaid caregivers are the largest number of caregivers. And a caregiver, we call them caregivers here as opposed to carers, but caregiving could be the next door neighbor who
mm,
comes and checks on
mm,
someone, who picks up the paper for them or gets their mail or makes sure that they've got food or just checks on them, or there's a person that this elderly person may call when they fall on the floor. That's a
yeah,
caregiver, and that's an unpaid job. Um, Children and relatives who live far away, even though they live far away, they're talking to that in my case, my parents. I would talk to my father. My father would call me almost 20 times a day, and I would be at work. Now, my father had dementia, so he wasn't sure he was calling me at those 20 times a day. But until I figured that out, I was answering the call 20 times a day. Whether I was in
yeah,
an office or with my family or out trying to exercise, I was answering the call. I was a caregiver. I wasn't in the home with my father. I wasn't touching my father. I wasn't bathing my father, but I was a caregiver. So the neighbors are
mm,
caregivers, the children are caregivers, the spouse is a caregiver, members of a religious organization can be the caregivers. And all of that in the United States is close to $1 trillion. If you paid those people, it would
yeah,
cost $1 trillion to pay people who are actually the real caregivers. And then there's the
yeah,
paid caregiver as well, which is the one who's in the home. So anyone who is touching, speaking with, supporting, helping, listening to, they're caregivers.
mm,
And it's a
mm,
really hard job.
yeah, it's not an easy job. I know
Mhm,
from my father when he was still alive, and he lived just across the road from
mhm.
me. But I wasn't in there 24/7. I would maybe see him maybe once a week, but we would be on the phone. I would be talking to him every couple of days on the phone, and I never viewed myself as a caregiver.
Mhm.
And quite often we don't. So I'm really glad you pointed that out, for us to see, because sometimes I quite often think to myself that I didn't do enough for him, but I was still caring for him. Yeah.
Right. And I think
Mm,
it's but before you can find out how to be a good caregiver, you have to almost like some of the other kinds of things that happen in our life. You have to accept that you're a caregiver. You have to say,
Yeah.
I am a caregiver. And you have to
Yeah.
accept that. And then you have to try to find ways to find the best way to care, but also the best way to care for yourself.
Mm.
Because we use that old saying that when you're on the airplane and they say if you're riding with a child, you put your oxygen mask on first before you put it on the one beside you. It's the same way with a caregiver. You have to put your oxygen mask on. And what that means, what I talk with and try to support caregivers is trying to find ways for them to really embrace and identify self-care techniques. And we always think of self-care, not always, but a lot of people think of self-care of, oh, I'm going to go have a massage, or I'm going to go get a facial, or I'm going to go to the spa, I'm going to go on vacation. And that's how I'm going to self-care. And granted, those are great self-care ways too, but
Mm.
there's little tiny things that are good for self-care. And some of those things may be just setting your alarm that every 2 or 3 hours, you're going to get up for 15 minutes and go outside and take a breath of fresh air. That is self-care because nothing is going to happen in those 10 minutes that is going to be life-threatening. And it's the way that you can care for yourself. It's also about making sure that you're eating well, making
Mm.
sure that you're sleeping well, making sure that you're seeing your friends, making sure that you're doing things that you enjoy, even for small snippets of time. Just being mindful about the fact that you need to be caring for yourself as well as the person that you love, because people
Mm.
forget that. And what we
Mm.
find is that there is, in the numbers show that there is a 67% higher chance of a caregiver dying before the
Yeah.
person they care for.
Wow.
Well, where would your loved one be if you died? That wouldn't work. So you've got to take care of yourself.
Yeah. 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 There you go. Yeah. 67% chance. Is that
Mhm.
right?
Yes,
Wow.
yes. It's a very high number. And
That's right.
I in the business that I'm in, I get a number of calls. Again, these are usually from wives or the female side of the spouse side, where I very rarely get it from men, but I get it from the females who call me. They'll call me from the emergency room. I'm in the emergency room with a heart event. What
Right.
am I going to do for my husband?
Yeah.
And they're getting those heart events because they are just caring and caring and caring and doing all of this work.
Mm.
They also, become depressed. There's a depression that can set in that can lead to a number of other things because they're caring for people. So you
Yeah.
have to take care of yourself. And it's not selfish to take care of yourself.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Obviously, with the statistics you just shared with us, like it's
Yes.
not. I mean, it's really
Yes.
we can't continue to give from an empty cup. But also, it's like by taking care of ourselves, we're also taking care of our loved ones as well. Yeah.
Something else that I see that, let's say you have a paid carer who's coming into your home to help. What I see is I see a lot of times, especially the partner, well, and the children as well. They think that their parent or their loved one should be cared for in exactly this certain way. They like their coffee at this temperature with one spoonful of sugar and this little bit of cream in the cup. And if a caregiver who comes in doesn't do it exactly the way that dad or mom have had it for 40 years, then the children sometimes get really upset about, oh, no, 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 it has to be just so. And we need to learn to step back and let things not be just so. In life in general, we need to find a way to do that. But in the caregiving, we have to find a way to step back and let someone else do that work, because we
Mm.
do see a lot of that happen as well. Because, oh no, he likes it like this, or she wants to do this, or don't use that laundry detergent, or don't you've overcooked this thing. Just pick your battles. And it
Yeah.
may not always be the exact perfect way that they've had their coffee for 40 years. And that paid caregiver, if you're just kind and gentle to them and help them as you would an employee, because they are in your employ, then they'll get it. They'll figure out the coffee thing, but it doesn't have to be right the first time.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. And it's kind of, if you, I mean, if you take that into like a corporate situation, and an employee doing something for the first time, and a manager coming in, so no, you need to do it this way, this way, this way. It's micromanaging.
Correct, correct. Don't
Yeah, it is.
micromanage your paid caregiver.
That's right. It is.
Right,
Yeah, it
right.
is.
That's the key.
And yeah, and also, what is the point in having a paid caregiver come in if you're going to be overseeing them the whole time and not really letting go, because
Correct,
they're creating more stress. Yeah,
correct, correct.
creates more stress. So
Mhm.
what do you think are the main, or what do you see actually? What do you see are the main reasons that caregivers don't look after themselves?
Because they think that they're the only one who can care for this person. They're the only
Mm,
one who knows them as well as they know them. They maybe if they're married, they have wedding vows that they have said, I will take care of them. I will take care of you,
yeah,
in sickness and in health. And they believe that they have to be the ones. They believe they have to be the ones. And so then there's also a little bit of that is um, look what I did. I'm caring for this person. Look what I'm doing. And there's a little bit of
yeah,
a martyr thing. We see that between siblings a lot of times, where the
right,
siblings who are trying to help with their parents, they feel this either guilt that they're not helping enough, so they swoop into town and they try to help a lot, or they feel this martyrdom because they have said to them, I'm moving home where mother is, or I'm moving home with the parents. I'll do it. And then they come back around saying, oh, woe is me. I'm the one who's helping. I'm the one who's cleaning up the mess. It's me, it's me, it's me. So I see there's so many dynamics
yeah.
into why people think they're the one.
Yeah, 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 I can see that. Yeah. And so, what stops people reaching out and asking for help?
Um, there there's two different sets of people who would stop to reach out for. So let's think about the person who needs care. They don't want to reach out for help because they don't want anyone to see them in a weak position, and they want to be thought of as independent and
Yeah,
strong, especially around their children. A lot of family dynamics raise their ugly heads when people are beginning to age, and whether this is good, bad, or indifferent, and whether I should talk to my therapist about it, I don't want my children to see me cry. I don't want them to see me weak. So when
mm,
my time comes, I'm sure I'm going to be that person that says, I don't need any help. I've got it. I can do it. Um, I find as I age, I was at an event, I was at the US Pickleball Open this weekend, and I found myself stepping up a little bit larger step than I would normally step. And and all of a sudden I thought, I can't do this, even though I'm an
mm,
athlete. And I thought, I can't do it. And someone reached their hand out to help me up. And I thought, I can't take their hand. They'll think I'm weak.
yeah,
Now, eventually I took it because I thought I was going to fall down the bleachers. But I think it's that same thing. People want to be thought of as independent. And then caregivers, it's the same thing. They want to be thought of as, oh, I've got it. I can do it. I don't need anybody's help. So it's
mm,
our own inner things that we probably deal with in other ways as well.
mm. As you were saying this, my own words came into my mind. I don't want to be a burden. I don't ever
Correct.
want to be a burden. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm.
Mm, yeah.
Right, and we have to think of it we have to change that mindset and twist it around a little
Yeah.
bit, that
Mm,
being cared for and being helped is not a burden,
mm,
and that we're not being a burden, and then we have to think about the fact that these people that are helping us are also probably paying it forward because it's going to be their turn, and so
yeah,
give
that's
them
true.
that ability and they find joy in it. Give them the ability and the joy to help you.
Yeah, that's true, isn't it? That is
Mhm,
true.
mhm.
Mm,
And if you don't receive help, you become an even bigger burden because
mm,
you fall or you haven't seen a doctor when you should have, and it just begins to exacerbate what's already going on.
mm, 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 I can see that. Cynthia, do you ever come across a client who has asked siblings for help? and yet their help isn't forthcoming? Has that ever come into your awareness with clients that you have?
Every day,
Every
every day,
day.
every day. Yes, yes. And so we see it in a couple of ways. One, again, it's that family dynamic that has been around since these children, these siblings were born.
Mm,
And there are things that happen when these siblings and these children get into this position where they're caring for their parents, and there are a lot of old wounds that open up. I will have clients who will say, my mother was always mean to me. Why should I help her now?
mm,
Or there will be these clients who will say, my sister was always so bossy. She doesn't need me, and I'm not going to be bossed around by my sister. Her sister may be 70 years old at this point, but that dynamic is still there from childhood.
yeah.
And I'm not a therapist, so I can't help with that, but I see it.
Yeah. Yeah, you do see it. You do see
Mhm,
it.
mhm.
And do you see that with also with people who are caregivers when they are the primary caregiver, but they're needing help and it's not forthcoming from siblings? Does that actually
Correct.
play
They
out
see
too?
that
Yeah.
they are that way. And we do a
Mm,
lot of work around what I call kind of family mediation, where we want to get them all together and we want them to
yeah.
understand from not from a look what she's doing, but I feel like that sometimes the people who aren't helping, they have their own set of guilt or their own set of issues. And some of it is they just don't want to even confront this person who's doing all the help. And
Yeah.
they don't want to
Yeah.
get into this situation of, did you think about doing it this way?
Mm, mm.
So again, it's there's a lot of family dynamics, I say again, in these
Yeah,
situations.
yeah. So it does play out. Yeah. And I
It
think
does.
it's important to talk about this because a lot of time people think they're in a situation that nobody else is going through, or they're the only ones going through it, or nobody else will understand. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think that's really
Well,
important.
in
I
the if you
love that
think
you
about
do
it,
that.
the United States number is that 10,000 people a day turn 65. So
Mm,
trust me, you're
mm,
not alone. No
yeah,
one is alone in this situation. Now, most of my clients will say to me, "Oh, nobody has a family like we have," or "Nobody's mother is like my mother," or "Nobody's," but all families are different, but there's a lot of dynamics that are the same from family to family to family. Or you wouldn't have
mm,
people who made a lot of made their living with family counseling. There wouldn't be a business if there weren't some similarities.
yeah. That's true. Yeah, that
Mhm,
is true.
mhm, mhm, mhm,
That is true. Now, I'd love to talk a little bit about dementia and Alzheimer's because
mhm,
I'm seeing that there seems to be a lot more people that are suffering with this disease,
mhm,
dementia and
mhm,
Alzheimer's,
mhm,
and I'm wondering, do you have any insights that you can share? The reason why we're seeing it so much
mhm,
more often, is it because
mhm,
the baby boomers are reaching that age, or
mhm.
what is it?
Sure. So the disease of Alzheimer's, which is one of the dementia diseases, there's about 31 different diseases that fall under the category of dementia, but about I don't know 70% of those diseases are Alzheimer's. So we that's the word we use a lot. And what we know is that Alzheimer's is an aging disease. It's not a given that just because you age, you're going to have Alzheimer's. Now, just because you age, you're probably going to have gray hair and you're probably going to need glasses and hearing aids. That is kind of a given with aging. And just because you age, you're going to be slow, you're going to slow down and you're going to get shorter and not be able to be as strong. Those are things that happen to everyone who ages, but not everyone who ages gets Alzheimer's.
Mm,
However, Alzheimer's is a disease of the aged. So, because we're living longer, we're seeing more of it. That's one reason we're seeing more of it. We're also seeing more of it because the stigma is being lifted from the word Alzheimer's. My father died with Alzheimer's. When my father was diagnosed with it, I'd never heard the word, even though in my family, my grandmother, my father's mother, died with what we call we she didn't die with it. We just knew she had old timers. And old timers was where someone old told a story over and over again. And then when I go back into my memory, my great grandmother, my father's grandmother, she had senility But it's not senility. She had Alzheimer's. She
Yeah.
told the stories over and over, but we never talked about her. We never told our friends about her. We never really talked with
Mm.
our parents about her or our cousins about her. She was just the crazy granny that lived in the house behind our uncle. And so as we have matured as a society and we've learned more about this disease, and we've learned, number one, that it's not always that person's fault that they get that disease. There are some dementia diseases that are caused by poor lifestyles. So there's an alcohol induced dementia. There's some of those types of diseases, but most of them are not because someone did something wrong. So now
Yeah.
that we know more about it and we talk more about it, and we have places like the Alzheimer's Association, which is an international organization raising money who's very out there from a publicity standpoint. We're hearing about it more, we understand it more, and we're getting older, so more people are having it. So
Yeah.
it is an epidemic. It is a problem, and it's
Mm.
going to be
Yeah.
a much larger problem.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I'm seeing it. Yeah, I'm seeing
Mhm,
it
mhm,
too.
mhm.
I'm seeing it with people I'm very close to and their
Right.
parents.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um,
And one of the things I think that we want to think about when we think about Alzheimer's is we want to think about the person who has this disease. Again, no fault of their own, but what must they be going through as
mm,
they are as they have this disease? And people know. I had a man in a an event that I did about a week ago, and he came up to me and he said, "I'm going to the doctor tomorrow and I think I'm having some results from an MRI." And I said, "What do you think you're going to see there?" And he said, "They're going to tell me I have Alzheimer's." And I said, "Why do you say that?" And he said, "Well, I can quote a poem from my sophomore year in high school, but I don't remember what I had for lunch."
right.
And so he knows that this disease is there. And what we know about this disease is that it's in your brain working its detriment for 20 years before the first symptom ever comes up. That's part of the issue with this disease is that it's doing things in there before you ever notice it. But if you think about someone who doesn't remember things, the anxiety that you or I would have. When I
Mm,
forget a word, I get a
mm,
little anxious. Even though I know that that's not necessarily mean I have it, I might just be stressed that day. But if I have trouble with word retrieval or I forget somebody's name, I get anxious. And that anxiety can cause me to forget more things. And so that's what happens to someone who's in those early stages. They know it's happening. They can they have trouble with words. They end up sitting at a stop sign for a long time, not remembering which direction they should turn, and then it comes to them where what they're doing and where they are, and it's very frightening. So
yeah.
there's this frightening piece of it. The other thing that as it's in the newer, earlier stages, there's a great depression that sets in. And I always say, well, just think about it. If you knew you had this disease, I'd be depressed. What about you? You know,
Mm,
you
mm,
go, yay, I have this disease. It'll be fine. So there's that. And then what happens is as that disease progresses, they don't really know most of the time they have that disease.
mm,
They're just living their life, playing their games, watching TV, doing what they're doing. They don't really get it, but there will be moments of lucidity where they get it. And again, it's frightening and it's scary. And especially when there are times in these diseases where hallucinations or delusions come in. And these people are frightened because they see things, or they're frightened because they feel like someone is cheating them or stealing from them. And what we advise people to do when they're working with people like that is to, number one, remember it's not their fault. They didn't do this to themselves, they have no control over it. And
mm,
so you have to treat them with love and with kindness, and you have to listen to their stories and help them just sit with it and be comfortable with it, but not tell them they're wrong and not try to convince them that they don't know what they're talking about. So there's a lot to this disease.
yeah. 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 I'm hearing that because sometimes those delusions can be quite frightening for them too, can't they?
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah, and I can imagine, like, if you're trying to tell them that they're wrong and it's something that feels so real, we're going to
Correct.
be more determined to hold on to the story.
And they're going to become irritable and anxious as well, trying to convince you because they even though they're in dementia, they still have this inkling that they're losing their mind.
Yeah.
And that's the most fearful thing. People don't, when they think about it, okay, if I have cancer, I'll do this, or if this happens, I'll do that. But losing their mind is the thing that people are most afraid of in this world.
Yeah. Yeah. I can totally understand that, because I know, just like you said, if I forget a word, if
Mhm,
I have difficulty putting a sentence together, then
mhm,
it's first of all, it's embarrassing, and
mhm,
then you can get quite anxious around it.
mhm. And
Yeah.
what I'm going to tell you is that if you are having trouble putting those words together, that's a midlife stressor. That's what it is. You're under a lot of stress. You're in midlife. You have a lot of things in your brain that you've learned in the past 50, 60 years,
Yeah.
and you've got a lot going on, and that's what it is. But that stress begets stress.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm,
And it's
mhm,
important to learn how to manage the stress.
mhm.
Is a lot of stress associated with Alzheimer's in later years, or it is?
Well, but once you get past if you have the disease,
Mhm.
once you get past a certain point, you have a beautiful life because you don't have any stress.
Yeah.
Because people are taking care of you and
Yeah.
they're laughing at your stories and they're there to take care of you. You may get frightened about something that you don't understand, but then there should be somebody there who's helping to help you to understand it. So
Yeah.
it can be a beautiful life
Yeah.
once
Yeah.
you get into the full throw of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I love what you shared before. I think you shared it before we got on to record the interview. You mentioned that if you accept and just listen to their stories and ask questions around it, then eventually they just move on to something else.
Right. My favorite times with my father in the end, near the end of his life was watching the Food Network, and we were watching Anthony Bourdain. And Anthony Bourdain was in Madagascar, and my dad said, "Oh, I loved Madagascar." Okay, my dad had never ever been to Madagascar, but I had a discussion with him, and I said, "Really, what did you like? What'd you like about Madagascar?" And he said, "I like the food." And I said, "Well, what did you eat?" And he said, "We ate ants, and they were coated in chocolate." And I said, "Really, how did they taste?" He said, "They were kind of crunchy." So, it was hot. I went through the five senses and said, "Talk to me about Madagascar. What was the weather like? How many days were you there?" And he told me this beautiful, delicious story about being in Madagascar, even though he'd never been. But we had a really great bonding time watching Anthony Bourdain and talking about my dad's trip.
I love it.
And it would not have been as pleasant if I had said, "Oh, you've never been to Madagascar. What are you talking about?" Or "That's crazy. Oh, really? Tell me when you went." That wasn't it. It was about just being where he was, being in his reality.
Nice. This is really important information for us to know.
Mhm.
Uh, it is really important because, when we come across a situation like this with a loved one, we actually don't know how to handle it, how to work
Correct.
through it for the best care for both
Mhm.
parties, for the
Mhm.
caregiver and for the person that's being cared for. So
Mhm.
thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
You're
So
welcome.
really, really insightful.
You're welcome. I want to help educate people. I want them to understand because we are all getting older.
Yeah,
It's not if we get older, it's when we get older.
yeah, that's right. It's going to happen.
It is. It is.
There's no way we can avoid that.
Mhm. Great. Well, thanks for having me
Thank
today.
you. Thank you so much for everything you've shared. This has been absolutely fantastic. And thank you for joining us. You're going to find links to connect with Cynthia in the description notes underneath this video. And if you found this content helpful, please remember to like, share, subscribe to this channel, and click the bell for notifications so you're notified when the next video comes out. Lots of love to you, and I'll look forward to connecting next time. Bye-bye.